Hi, I'm Stichy the Scarecrow. Welcome to my pumpkin patch. I'm so glad you're here. Pumpkins are so amazing, and we see them everywhere this time of year because during the fall is when we harvest pumpkins. Did you know that there are lots of interesting things about pumpkins? Come on in and let's take a closer look at this amazing pumpkin. This pumpkin has several parts that are super important to its growth, starting with this big tall stem that we see here. We're going to talk more about that in just a little bit. The other really important part is the skin, this bright orange skin. That is probably the most noticeable part about a pumpkin. Did you ever pay attention to the lines that go all the way around the pumpkin? Those are called the ribs. And one part that you probably never paid much attention to is on its bottom. This is where the blossom once was. We call this the blossom end. Isn't that so cool? Let's dig inside and see what it looks like inside. To take a closer look inside the pumpkin, we're going to need to cut it open. You might have done this before if you ever made a jack-o'-lantern with your parents. Please be sure to always be safe and have a parent help you cut open a pumpkin. You just simply want to make a circle all the way around the top of the pumpkin. Once you're done cutting, you lift open the top and look at that. Is that not cool or what? When we open up the pumpkin, it might look a little gross, but don't be worried. You can touch it. It feels slimy, and there's also these really important things inside that are white and about as big as a thumbnail. These are the pumpkin seeds. Also, you're going to see this rim that goes all the way around the pumpkin, and inside of the pumpkin, that is called the flesh of the pumpkin, or the pulp, some people call it. But what about these stringy things? All of these strings, we call them fibers. They're fibrous strings, and they are attached to the seeds. That's how the seeds grow. That's how they get their nutrients. But how in the world does a pumpkin get here? Come on into my pumpkin patch and I'll show you how. Do you remember those seeds we saw inside of the pumpkin and how I said they were really important for the future growth of more pumpkins? Well, this is how a pumpkin is started. A farmer puts the seeds into soil. Soil is rich in nutrients. That's what helps the pumpkin to grow. The soil acts like food that you eat that helps you grow. But it doesn't need just soil. It also needs sun. Sunlight is super important. That's where the pumpkin gets its energy for growing. It's also really important for it to have water. Just like you need water, pumpkins need water too. And just like you breathe air, pumpkins need air to grow as well. So once it's in the soil and it gets lots of water and air and sun, the seed starts to form roots. We call this sprouting. The roots grow and grow deep down into the soil. Remember, this is how the plant gets its nutrients from the soil. They act kind of like a straw and they suck up all the nutrients in the soil. It feeds the pumpkin so it can keep growing. And it keeps growing, and those little seeds become into big pumpkin vines. Pumpkins also need a lot of space to grow because the vine grows out so long. So if we review that, pumpkins need soil, sun, water, air, and space. When a pumpkin has all 5 things that it needs to grow, a magic thing starts to happen. A blossom forms. Look at this beautiful, bright yellow blossom. This is the beginning of the pumpkin. As the blossom continues to grow, it forms a tiny, tiny pumpkin. Do you see that green thing at the end of the blossom? That's a tiny pumpkin. Isn't that so neat? This tiny little green pumpkin will continue to grow bigger and bigger, and then the blossom falls off. But that doesn't mean it's ready yet. The pumpkin continues to grow. And look, it's still green. It's not even orange yet. Does that even look like a pumpkin? It might not look like a pumpkin, but I promise you it is. And it's going to start turning orange. Once the pumpkin turns orange, that tells us that it is ripe, which means it's ready to harvest. Do you remember how we talked about the importance of the stem? The stem is what carries the nutrients into the pumpkin. So it goes from the roots down to the vine, into the stem, and into the pumpkin so that it can grow nice and big and turn from green to orange. And then it's ready to harvest so that you can bring home and turn it into jack-o'-lanterns. Maybe some of you like pumpkin pie or pumpkin cookies, or maybe you just like decorating with pumpkins. There are so many useful things that you can do with a pumpkin. Now that's a lot of information to remember, so I have something special for you. I have a song for you to remember how a pumpkin grows. It's a repeat after me song. What I say,
you say.
All right, I think you're ready. For a pumpkin to stay alive,
For a pumpkin to stay alive,
it needs 5 things, that's no lie.
it needs 5 things, that's no lie.
It needs water so it can grow.
It needs water so it can grow.
It needs soil just like so.
It needs soil just like so.
Pumpkins need space to grow and grow.
Pumpkins need space to grow and grow.
The sun gives them energy.
The sun gives them energy.
Don't forget to give it air.
Don't forget to give it air.
Repeat these 5 things if you dare.
Repeat these 5 things if you dare.
Need 1 water.
Need 1 water.
Need 2 soil.
Need 2 soil.
Need 3 space.
Need 3 space.
Need 4 sunlight.
Need 4 sunlight.
Need 5 air.
Need 5 air.
Great job! Before we go, let's take a review over the pumpkin parts and see what you remember. Do you remember what this is called? That's right, it's the stem. What about the orange part of the pumpkin? If you were thinking skin, you're correct. And these lines that go all the way around the pumpkins, what are those called? Ribs, you're right. And what's the bottom of this pumpkin called? The blossom end, correcto. Now let's take a look inside. Do you remember what this part of the pumpkin is called? That is the flesh or the pulp of the pumpkin. Great job. And all of these white things we see inside, they're called what again? Seeds, correct. And what are these slimy parts of the pumpkin? If you were thinking fibrous strands, you are correct. Great job, you are so smart. Thanks for joining me in my pumpkin patch today. It sure was fun showing you around the pumpkin patch and all about my amazing buddies, the pumpkins. Now it's time for me to get back to my job of protecting these pumpkins. I'll see you later.